the last 10 days in Ohio have been cold, so I know, especially for myself, my steps are down, where I would normally average somewhere between 13,000 and 15,000 steps a day. That's probably been cut in half because I haven't been getting outside because the temperatures are quite cold. So again, that's a battle that I'm sure many of us face. I'm sure everybody can relate to that to a certain degree. So again, getting out, not just the New Year's resolutions and trying to get to the gym, and hopefully if you've made those New Year's resolutions, you're keeping them, getting to the gym. If you are, congratulations, good job, keep going. We're in our, getting into our 4th week in January here, so everybody, if you've kept it up, you should be seeing some results at this point in time. Cardiovascularly, you should be getting better. You should feel better. Energy should be up. Hopefully there's some weight loss right there. If you are getting up, going to the gym, doing your workouts, doing your at-home programs, stretching. Again, the health benefits obviously are there. Even if you're not losing weight at this point in time, just moving, staying moving is huge. Which leads me to, kind of what I felt this week, which is I have been incredibly sore, stiff, joints have been achy. I've heard some patients this week kind of describe the same type of feeling. I feel it's probably, the cold mornings, not unable to get warm, and then of course, my own fault, my lack of steps, movement, workouts, things like that. So stay on target. Obviously, Red 5 leader from Star Wars, stay on target. Always good advice. The other thing I wanted to touch on today, there's been a couple of articles. One, there was an article yesterday that kind of stated that obesity and diet are not, or that diet and exercise are not related to obesity. Continue to exercise, get their steps, even when it's uncomfortable, because it's 25 degrees out this morning, so I'm sure there weren't a lot of people out walking. But just continue to encourage people, get their steps in, whether it's on the treadmill, whether they're going to the gym, doing some type of exercise program, even a 20-minute yoga video. It's funny because I'm going to encourage my 14-year-old son, who has difficulty waking up in the morning, to do a 20-minute yoga video with me in the morning to try to see if he can get some increased energy and not be a mopey 14-year-old teenager. So fingers crossed. I would encourage people to research, maybe Google some of these documents. It was recently reported that an obesity specialist has said that diet and exercise have no bearing on obesity. It's more on genetics. I'm going to basically say, obviously never meeting the doctor, I tried to look up the research paper and see what she had based those, she stated it, so I'm assuming that this is more than hypothetical, that she has some research to back it up. I could not find the research. I would wholeheartedly disagree with that for a couple reasons. First of all, and again, this may, I certainly don't want to offend anybody that feels like fat shaming or anything like this, but let's just face it, as individuals, we know if we're carrying too much weight. Are we the same size we were in high school? Are we the same size we were in our 20s? If you have put on, if you're in your 40s and you've put on 4 to 5 pounds a year, every year, you are not at your ideal weight. And I won't even go into the detriments to your overall health, but I can guarantee you, most likely, it has a large portion to do with your diet. The supposition that it's genetics, okay, look at your parents, right? If they're obese, do you eat like them? Because it has probably more to do with their diet and how they pass their diet down to your diet. But go back 2-3 generations. Were your grandparents obese? Were your great-grandparents obese? If you're in your 20s or 30s now, or even in your 40s, I'm assuming that that your grandparents or your great-grandparents lived through the Great Depression, where, I mean, I've seen pictures from the 20s and the 30s, not a lot of obesity. So there's no possible way that now that the country is at 70% of adult Americans are either considered overweight or obese, that obese people are, procreating at, mathematically, I wouldn't even figure they'd have to be having kids at a rate of like 10 times what, would be dabbed as non-obese genetics would be. I think that this is clearly, it's a straw man argument. It's, you're trying to blame somebody else for somebody's state in life. And to be true, to be honest with you, you are responsible for what you eat, how much you exercise, how much exercise you get. You do not have to go run a marathon every day, right? In fact, that would probably be detrimental to your health. I would say that if you walk and you get your heart rate up for at least 30 minutes a day, you're going to be healthier and you will feel better. And you will, if you watch your diet, if you understand the difference between, good calories versus bad calories, saturated fat versus unsaturated fat, carbs, we get way too many carbs in our society, which are just completely detrimental. It's trying to blame somebody else and take the personal responsibility off of the individual. And when that happens, and you're being sold, you're just being sold. If you believe that, if you want to believe that, if you want to lay the blame on somebody else, that's not, you're not going to be healthy. And then you're not going to take the steps because you're going to think that this is just the way I was born. That, and then another article I saw this morning on a video was that, they want to ban the term obesity because they say it's racist. Again, not really sure, since it's a mathematical, computation of height, body weight to get your BMI, which basically establishes, what your body mass index is and where you fall into the chart. Not sure how that's racist, but again, I don't know, I guess I could use the term gaslighting here. You're being told that you're not responsible for it, that individuals aren't responsible for it, that there are some factors that are in there. Obviously, the food supply isn't great. You're getting a ton of, it's tough. You really have to search out good, healthy food options, which are not truly more expensive than processed food, but you probably have to prepare it. Convenience foods are not going to be, aren't going to be great. They're just not. I'm not saying that you can never eat fast food. If you're on the way back from a sporting event, you got your kids, you want to run through McDonald's, kids won, let's go for ice cream or McDonald's, that's great. If you are eating fast food more than 2 or 3 times a week, I think that one should probably reevaluate their food choices and learn to throw together a meal in a quick 20 to 25 minutes. It doesn't take that long to saute some vegetables. I don't mean for this to sound harsh, but we can't sit here and let medical doctors or political advisors or people with an agenda tell us that we're not responsible for our own health, because it's just untrue. It's just blatantly a lie. So that's what I have on that's what I have on that. When we use the word diet, okay, we're not talking about the South Beach diet, the Atkins diet, the Neanderthal diet, the paleo diet, right? Those are diets that give you certain foods to eat in order to probably kickstart your metabolism or do things to, help you jumpstart your metabolism in such a way that it promotes weight loss. And again, some of those are very effective, and they're very effective in the short term. And we've been on, and I've tried some of those diets. I've tried eating on some of those diets for just to see what they were like. And we can get into that at a later date. The most important thing with diet is determining what your food choices need to be. What do you need to have in your house? What do you need to have in your fridge? More importantly, what do you probably need to not have in your house? Where we probably make most of the mistakes is, do you constantly have sweets, carbs, chips, salty snacks in your house that, when you're bored or you're watching television or you're sitting down, just, relaxing and chilling. Like I said, it's cold. I mean, there's not a lot of stuff to do outside right now. We're not going to the driving range today. What can we do to minimize our exposure to bad foods? And what are good foods, and what should be, eating a 16-ounce steak, protein is good. Eating a 16-ounce steak is probably, not the healthiest thing, because it's an incredible amount of protein. If you're not working out and breaking down muscle tissue, we don't need that much protein to help replace what we've damaged or broken down or need to be replaced. So you're getting an excess amount of protein, which is not really going to benefit you, but your body is going to, probably try to store all that excess. So it's knowing what your portion control size is, staying moving, but again, we'll kind of keep hitting this diet thing because, again, the national information that's going out, this is on, that article was on from Fox News to Daily Mail to, the doctor who wrote the article or claimed that obesity was not connected to diet and exercise was on 60 Minutes. That's what people are hearing. I can guarantee you, I hate to say this, but being a realist, I understand that 60 Minutes probably has a slightly larger platform than mine. Leslie Stahl's a little bit better known than Chad Vogelsang. But you're getting, people are getting this information, and then they're saying, like, what, this is what I've been saying. It's not my fault that I'm overweight. And that's just untrue. And we're not trying to lay blame, because if you're already overweight, or if you've fallen into the category of obese, all right, there's nothing we can do about that. You're there, all right? What we have to do is, how do we move forward? What can we do? What habits do we have to change? Because if we keep doing the same things, we already know the result. What habits do we have to change? What education do we have to give the patient or the individual that will allow them to reverse this course? Because I've seen it happen. I've seen it happen numerous times. I've watched people, who were extremely overweight, lose it, and in every case, I'm telling you, in every case, they are healthier, they are happier, they have more education, they get out and they play with their kids. People in your 30s, if your kids are in their, in middle school or less, if you can't run around with a soccer ball, if you can't throw a ball with your kid without getting out of breath, that's not really where we're supposed to be in our 30s and 40s, let alone, and then it's just going to increase. It's really tough to reverse it when you get over, when you get into your 40s. So we're going to keep hitting, the term diet in the respect that these are the things you need to do. And it doesn't mean that you don't need to, that you can't eat anything. Some people are really strict with it, and they get really strict with it, and that's great for them. I generally, eat pretty much what I want. I don't really deny myself too many things, but I also I can go on my, I'll go further into detail about my ice cream addiction, but it's, there are options for people, and it has to come down to education, and then it has to come down to what food choices that we're making.